My friend, have you ever had a moment that made you stop and wonder, why did this happen now? A phone call just when you needed it, a book that finds you at the perfect time, a stranger who utters the exact words your soul was desperate to hear. That is not randomness. That is synchronicity. Carl Jung called synchronicity a meaningful coincidence. It's not just chance. It's a whisper from the universe, a coded message from the unconscious, a sacred alignment between your inner world and the outer one. Today, let me share with you 5 powerful truths, 5 keynotes, about the secret of synchronicity. And once you understand these, you will never see life the same way again. You are not merely a thinking mind. Beneath the surface of your conscious exists a vast, intricate world. A world Carl Jung called the unconscious. This deeper part of you holds memories, instincts, archetypes, and truths you may not yet understand, but which shape the way you see, feel, and move through the world. The conscious mind tries to reason, analyze, control. It wants clarity, predictability, and certainty. But life is not always linear. Life is layered, symbolic, and deeply mysterious. And in that mystery, the unconscious speaks a different language, one of symbols, dreams, impulses, and feelings that seem to come from nowhere. When synchronicity occurs, those uncanny moments when inner experience aligns with outer reality, it's not that the world suddenly becomes magical. It's that the unconscious is momentarily revealed. Something within you knows, long before the mind understands. A dream you had weeks ago manifests in a conversation today. A gut feeling leads you down the right path without any logic behind it. A sudden insight without evidence proves to be true. How? Because the Psyche already knew. The mind simply caught up. Jung believed that the Psyche is not limited by time or space. It taps into a collective reservoir of meaning, wisdom, and interconnectedness that goes far beyond our individual logic. When synchronicity strikes, it's the Psyche showing you a glimpse of this order, this hidden thread that binds your soul's path with the events of your life. In these moments, your rational mind might resist. It may call it luck, coincidence, or delusion. But somewhere deeper, something resonates. You feel it. You know it, even if you can't explain it. That knowing is real. It is the knowing that comes from within, from the ancient layers of the self that are not bound by facts and figures, but by intuition, resonance, and symbol. The Psyche is always speaking. It's just that the mind is too noisy to hear. Silence the noise, and you will hear the whisper. Slow down, and you will begin to sense the pattern. Trust what moves beneath the surface, because often, the greatest truths are not shouted. They are felt. And that is the secret the Psyche knows, even when the mind does not. It always has. What you carry within you shapes what appears outside of you. Every thought, emotion, belief, and expectation becomes a silent signal, reaching beyond your body into the very fabric of life. You may not see it with your eyes, but it is there. Subtle, invisible, powerful. Your inner world is not separate from the outer world. It is in constant dialogue with it. This is the essence of synchronicity. A reflection of the inner patterns you hold, mirrored back to you through people, circumstances, and events. If you move through life believing that you are unworthy, unnoticed, or unlucky, you begin to encounter people and situations that reinforce that belief. Not because the world is punishing you, but because you unconsciously align with those experiences. You become drawn to them, and they to you. Your unconscious seeks confirmation of your inner reality. This is not superstition. It is psychological magnetism. Likewise, when you start believing in your inner worth, when you cultivate clarity, when you speak with intention, and when your actions arise from self-awareness, your environment begins to shift. Doors open, people show up, opportunities that once felt distant become accessible. The outer world starts to reflect your new inner frequency. Not because it has changed, but because you have. Jung understood this deeply. He saw that the Psyche emits signals, just like a tuning fork. When two frequencies resonate, they meet. This is why the events of your life are rarely as random as they seem. You don't simply stumble into experiences. You attract, align, and engage with them through the structure of your inner life. Even chaos, even pain. These are not just random storms. They often arise to reveal unconscious patterns that you've outgrown but haven't yet faced. The toxic relationship, the repeated failure, the unexplained resistance. They carry lessons, and they speak in the voice of synchronicity. They arrive to show you something about yourself you have not yet brought into the light. This is why awareness is liberation. The more conscious you become of your inner patterns, your assumptions, fears, narratives, the more power you have to transform your reality. You begin to engage with life, not as a victim of fate, but as a co-creator of meaning. There is no need to force or manipulate. There is only the need to see clearly, because when you shift what lives within you, life cannot help but respond. You are not separate from what you experience. Your world is a mirror, and once you accept that your patterns call forth events, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead begin asking, what in me is calling this into being? That question changes everything. Every moment, every encounter, every detour. None of it is accidental. Though it may seem that life unfolds in a series of random steps and unpredictable outcomes, the deeper truth is that there is a sacred intelligence guiding your path. It is not always visible. It does not always feel gentle, but it is purposeful. And when you learn to see through the eyes of the soul rather than the fears of the ego, you begin to understand that everything you experience is part of a greater unfolding. Pain is not punishment. Delay is not denial. Failure is not final. Each is a chapter in a story far more complex and meaningful than your conscious mind can grasp in the moment. What seems like a loss may, in time, reveal itself to be a redirection. What feels like abandonment may later prove to be protection. And what appears as an ending is often the disguised beginning of something far more aligned with who you are becoming. Jung believed that life is always moved individuation, the process of becoming whole, integrated, and fully yourself. This journey is not linear. It is not neat. It often requires that you face your shadows, confront your illusions, and descend into your own darkness before you can rise into light. But even in the descent, even in the confusion or sorrow, something deeper is at work. Synchronicity emerges most clearly in these moments, just when you feel lost. Someone says something that shifts your entire perception. Just when you think you've failed, an opportunity arises that would have never appeared had you taken the easy route. These are not coincidences. They are revelations. Signs that you are still being guided, even when you cannot see the map. When you begin to trust that nothing is wasted. Not your heartbreaks, not your waiting, not even your mistakes. You reclaim your sense of power. You recognize that every event carries within it the seed of transformation. The soul is not concerned with appearances or status. It seeks meaning. It seeks depth. It seeks truth. This does not mean you will always understand why something is happening in the moment. In fact, the meaning of an experience often unfolds slowly over time. But if you hold the belief that there are no accidents in your soul's journey, you begin to live differently. You begin to look for the lesson instead of the blame. You become curious instead of bitter. You trust the unfolding, even in uncertainty. The ego demands answers and control. The soul invites surrender and awareness. When you walk through life with the belief that every experience is part of your becoming, you step into alignment with the wisdom of the universe. You are no longer a passive subject of fate. You are a conscious traveler on a deeply personal and sacred journey. So the next time something unexpected disrupts your plans, pause, breathe, look again, ask Naimi, but what is this teaching me? Because on the soul's journey, nothing is wasted, nothing is meaningless, and absolutely nothing is an accident. The outer world is not merely a backdrop to your life. It is a living mirror, constantly reflecting the truth of your inner state. What you encounter in others, what you react to, what draws you in or pushes you away, is often a reflection of what is stirring within you. The world does not just show you what you want to see. It shows you what you need to see. And more often than not, it reveals what you are ready, consciously or unconsciously, to face. If you carry unresolved pain, you may find yourself repeatedly drawn to situations that reopen the same wounds. If you harbor fears you refuse to acknowledge, life may confront you with circumstances that challenge those fears head on. If you suppress your power, you might feel overshadowed or unnoticed. But if you begin to reclaim your voice, your truth, your self-worth, you will start to notice how differently the world responds. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. Carl Jung often emphasized that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. In other words, the aspects of ourselves we avoid or repress don't simply disappear. They return to us in the form of external events, difficult relationships, or repeated patterns. The people who trigger you, the setbacks that frustrate you, the chaos that surrounds you. These are not just obstacles, they are messengers. They reveal what still needs healing, what still needs integration. There is deep wisdom in the timing of life. You will not be asked to face something until, at some level, you are ready. Ready to see it. Ready to feel it. Ready to begin the work of transformation. And so, when something keeps appearing again and again in your life, consider that it is not a curse, but an invitation. An opportunity to turn inward and ask, why is this here? What is it trying to teach me about myself? As your consciousness expands, your perception of the world shifts. You begin to notice how events that once seemed random begin to form patterns. You start to recognize that the world isn't just happening to you. It's happening with you. It responds to the level of awareness you bring to it. A closed heart sees only rejection. An open heart begins to see lessons, growth, and grace even in the most challenging moments. This is why inner work is not separate from outer experience. The more you evolve internally, facing your shadows, honoring your truth, releasing old beliefs, the more your outer life transforms, not necessarily in ease or perfection, but in meaning. Life becomes symbolic, each encounter becomes sacred, even pain becomes purposeful. The world, in its infinite wisdom, does not waste energy showing you what you are not yet capable of confronting. But when the time is right, it will place a mirror before you, through a person, a situation, a sudden disruption. And in that reflection will be something vital for your growth. Something you are ready, now to see. And so, rather than resisting or blaming what life brings your way, ask what it is awakening in you. Let every challenge become a doorway, every discomfort a compass, every trigger a light pointing inward. Because ultimately, the world is not here to hurt you. It is here to awaken you, and what you are ready to face it is exactly what will find you. Faith is not blind belief. It is not nor optimism or the denial of hardship. True faith is a deep inner knowing. An unshakable sense that there is meaning beneath the surface, even when life appears uncertain or chaotic. It is the quiet courage to trust what cannot be seen, to believe in the unfolding of your path, even when you have no map in hand. And in the realm of synchronicity, faith is the key that unlocks the flow of unseen connections. Without it, the signs remain invisible. With it, everything begins to shimmer with meaning. Carl Jung understood that synchronicity emerges when the internal and external worlds fall into alignment. But this alignment does not occur in a vacuum. It arises in the presence of openness, intuition, and receptivity. Faith creates the inner conditions necessary for synchronicity to appear. When you let go of the need to control every outcome, when you release the grip of rigid logic and perfectionism, you begin to create space for the unexpected to enter. And what enters often defies explanation, but feels deeply, unmistakably right. Think of the moments in your life when the right person showed up at exactly the right time. Or when you were on the edge of despair, and suddenly a phrase, a dream, a song, or a stranger offered you precisely what your soul needed to hear. These are not accidents. They are events that slip through the cracks of what we call probability, guided not by chance but by meaning. And faith is what makes us aware enough to recognize them. Without faith, synchronicities go unnoticed. They happen, but the skeptical mind dismisses them as random. The heart may feel stirred, but the intellect shuts the door. Faith, however, slows you down. It softens your defenses. It tunes you into the symbolic language of the universe. You begin to perceive life not just through the lens of logic, but through the lens of depth, purpose, and interconnectedness. To have faith is to trust that there is more to reality than what is visible. It is to sense that life is not just a series of isolated events, but a living, breathing tapestry, woven by threads of meaning that often only become clear in hindsight. Faith does not mean that everything will go according to your plan. It means that, even when it doesn't, you are still exactly where you need to be. This kind of faith is not passive. It invites active participation. It asks you to listen, to watch, to pay attention to the inner nudges, the subtle feelings, the dreams that repeat, the people who enter your orbit again and again. It calls you to live with awareness and curiosity, to believe that even in moments of confusion or stillness, life is speaking to you. And as your faith deepens, so does your connection to the synchronistic field. You begin to witness more of these meaningful coincidences. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have opened yourself to a more symbolic way of living. You no longer demand proof before you believe. You believe, and in doing so, the proof often follows. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the willingness to keep moving forward in the presence of it. It is the choice to believe that life is always guiding you. even when the way is unclear. And when you hold that belief, gently but firmly, synchronicity responds, events begin to align, inner truth meets outer confirmation, and life itself becomes a dialogue, rich with mystery and meaning. So trust the process, trust the timing, trust the whisper within that says keep going. You are not alone. Because when you live with faith, you live in harmony with a universe that is always conspiring to help you remember who you truly are. So I tell you to today, open your eyes, nothing is random. Every tear, every smile, every moment of silence or storm is part of a sacred unfolding. You were not thrown into this world, you were placed, and everything that is happening to you is a dialogue between your soul and the cosmos. There are no coincidences, only invitations. Invitations to grow, to heal, to become. So step forward with trust, with awareness, with awe, because synchronicity is not a myth, it's a map, leading you home.